The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Tuesday, October 29th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining us. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you decided to spend time with me, and for that, I am grateful. New polling has come out, New Hampshire Democratic primary poll, showing that Bernie Sanders has ticked up 2 points. Joe Biden has gone down 9. Warren has gone down 18 points. And Buttigieg has not moved at all. Gabbard is up 4 points. Klobuchar is up 5 and Yang is up 4. But the headline out of that, I don't want to bury the lead. The headline is that Sanders in New Hampshire, a very important primary, has moved up to the 21%, up 2 points, and he's in the lead in New Hampshire, and that's critical. I do want to point out a couple of things here. That 9 points that Biden is missing, it has been divided. It has been divided. Bernie Sanders only got 2 of those points. Tulsi Gabbard got 4 of them. I mean, we don't know if it's 1-to-1, but I did say early on that the way to take the lead was to chip away at Joe Biden and not Elizabeth Warren, because I definitely see that there was the potential for Bernie Sanders to get Joe Biden supporters, because some of the core support for Joe Biden isn't this group that simply hates Bernie Sanders. It's really the group that is so desperate to beat Donald Trump that they were willing to believe the idea that Joe Biden was the best way to do it. See, that's a distinct difference. Now, some of the people who support Elizabeth Warren, some of them are former Bernie supporters, like a group of them. I do know, that did happen. But then a lot of the people who supported Hillary Clinton and never, ever, ever want to support Bernie Sanders, they went directly to Elizabeth Warren. Not because they saw her as a viable alternative, because they just don't want to support Bernie Sanders. And if you understand that, then you will understand that those people are going to stay with Elizabeth Warren to the bitter end. But the people who were the most malleable, movable, were always those Joe Biden supporters, because nobody really likes Joe. Everyone just thought, well, he's our best chance to beat Donald Trump. But as T.I. said on The View, I believe it was yesterday, that in fact, we can see that Bernie Sanders is the man to beat Donald Trump because of his base. And then the endorsements, obviously the endorsement from AOC last week, that definitely helped. Rashida Tlaib finally came out for him, which was a fabulous thing. But I really want you to focus on these numbers, right? Because you could see as Joe Biden goes down, Bernie Sanders goes up. But then, of course, there's still that we talked about Tulsi Gabbard last week, and I said, 4%. I said 1%, 2%. I said 1%, 2%. Now, we're talking about New Hampshire. We're not talking about national polling, right? So I have to see the data for the national polling. But let's just take New Hampshire as a microcosm, right? And we saw that Joe Biden went down. We see that that Tulsi Gabbard went up. Not the most. Klobuchar went up the most, surprisingly. That's probably because the establishment is getting extremely desperate. I'll get back to Tulsi Gabbard in a minute, but let me go on this tangent. The establishment is getting extremely desperate, and they don't believe. Here's the funny thing. As much as people want to convince you that Elizabeth Warren is establishment, I want you to just consider for a moment how much they would have closed ranks around Elizabeth Warren and given her the numbers to beat Bernie Sanders if she was truly trusted to be the establishment. Now, I've gone on 2 different tangents, but I'm going to get back to Tulsi Gabbard. You can believe that. But think about this, right? Buttigieg would be out the paint. Buttigieg is really there because he is the strongest voice for the establishment. He's really it's almost in a disgusting way. He's like, this guy really believes in opposing Medicare for all. Like, what kind of person are you that you're going to invest all of your energy into hurting people? Well, you might just be an American politician, but I digress. But Buttigieg really represents a faction and a fraction, I guess. Both words work fine. Of the establishment at that 10 points. Klobuchar, she's picking up some steam because they're getting desperate. And so if it was the case that Elizabeth Warren really was the darling of the establishment that everyone wants us to believe that she is, well, everyone on the left wants us to believe that she is, don't you know they would start closing ranks much sooner, right? They would shut out, they would definitely shut out Joe Biden, which looks like it's happening because he's feckless. But the support isn't going to Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is down 1 point. You see what I'm saying? So she's not the darling of the establishment that everyone wants to make her out to be. She is a threat to the establishment. She is a threat to Wall Street, but she's just not the threat. She's not the biggest threat to Wall Street. She's not the guaranteed revolutionary change, right? She will make change. She is not Buttigieg. She's not Klobuchar. She's certainly not Joe Biden. She will make change. And that's why the establishment is not closing ranks around her. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at the numbers, right? So let's get back to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, last week I told you all she would need is like 1 or 2%. Look at how close this is. Now look at how close this is. Biden is going down. And so it's really not close. But now, and maybe you'll believe me more when I say it's a race now between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, right? And maybe now, because a lot of people on the left, they don't want to like Elizabeth Warren, fine. So maybe if I show you now how important those percentage points that she is chipping away from Bernie Sanders, or that she is like siphoning off, if she's not eating directly at his base, she's siphoning off from Joe Biden. She went up 4 points, and now she's at 5 percentage points. And my friends, that is well within the margin for her to sandbag Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. I've been doing this for a while. I know my stuff. I know my stuff well enough to let you know when I see a sandbagger playing the game in the deck, with a hand. I just kind of really massacred that that analogy, but you get the point. Like, I can tell when somebody is there to be nothing but the upset, and that's what Tulsi Gabbard is. And the thing is like, well, maybe you don't consider her to be the upset, as in she's been planted to be the upset, right? But because she's coddling this mentality of dim exit, of what used to be Bernie or bust, but now it's evolving into Tulsi or bust, this anti-establishment, because she's really not anti-establishment, if that makes sense. I know it makes sense, but it's kind of convoluted. She's not anti-establishment because she's definitely pushing the military. She's definitely pushing this narrative of her being the commander in chief. She's definitely opposing some critical policies. She's really a conservative in so many ways. So she's not anti-establishment, but she gives cover. She creates this space for all of the people who are fixated with Hillary Clinton still and believe that the only true way to be anti-establishment is for you to burn it all down. Now Bernie Sanders isn't even good enough for this crew, right? So she's like the establishment, anti-establishment. And because of that, she's creating the space where people who otherwise, if they weren't worked into a frenzy, always kept in I don't know why I always do this, tizzy. I don't know why I do that. But she's benefiting from those people. And if they weren't kept in a frenzy by demagogues like Jimmy Dore, if they weren't kept in a frenzy, then they will see that our very best opportunity to get dynamic change in this country is through Bernie Sanders. But now Bernie Sanders isn't quote unquote progressive enough for them, despite him literally being out front on all the issues that are critical to our generation. And he's been there for 30 years. But now he's not good enough. So I only bring that up again because the numbers are showing exactly what we said last week, except for one difference. It's even bigger. Tulsi Gabbard has an even bigger impact than I thought she would. I thought maybe she would get a bump from 1% to 2%. Now she's at 5%. And Warren is only behind Sanders by 3%. These things matter.
Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
And as always, at this point, I'd like to take the time to thank our newest patrons. Special shout out to Nasama. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for becoming a patron. And a special thanks to Wale. I say Wale. I never really asked you how to pronounce your name, brother, all the way from the UK. But thank you for increasing your pledge. Every single dollar counts and matters. So thank you so much. Let's get back to the primaries, right? You know, I want to emphasize a point that I just want to double down on this because I think it's critical. The race is going to be extremely close. I personally believe that Warren and Sanders together, Sanders president, Warren vice president, is the combination that we need to change this nation in a fashion that we haven't seen in our lifetimes, right? However, the difference between Warren being the VP and Warren getting the nomination right now, well, I mean, and again, this is, to be fair, this is only the New Hampshire polls, right? But momentum means a lot. So right now, there's only 3 percentage points separating Warren from Sanders. And lo and behold, there's Tulsi Gabbard gobbling up 5 points, never standing a chance of actually winning, but definitely standing a chance of sandbagging Bernie Sanders. And to what end? And to what end? I mean, at least I will say at this point, at least America is finally coming to the realization that Joe Biden is certainly not the way to go. Joe Biden doesn't have the capacity. He might have at his prime had the capacity to go up against Donald Trump, but that's even pushing it. I don't believe that at any point in his career he would have been capable of going up against Donald Trump, but certainly not in his twilight years. No. Absolutely not. And so at least America is coming to terms with that. But like I said, and this is what I've been emphasizing, right? I've been telling you it's important that we chip away at Joe Biden because Joe Biden has a base that is not loyal to him. They're loyal to the idea of beating Donald Trump. And so long as they can see clearly that Bernie Sanders is the man to beat Donald Trump, they'll move over to him. And that's what a few points did. All right. Take a listen to this audio from, I believe the interviewer is John Harwood. It's a CNBC interview with Bernie Sanders asking him about red state Democrats like Joe Manchin.
Even if you have a successful election and you get elected, even if it's successful to the point that Democrats win a small majority in the Senate, is Joe Manchin going to vote for your program? Yeah. Is John Tester going to vote for your program?
Damn right they will. You know why? And they're friends of mine.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go to West Virginia, which is maybe the poorest state, well, one of the poorest states in this country. Look, what happens right now, your average politician sits around and he or she thinks, they say, let's see, if I do this, I'm going to have the big money interest putting 30-second ads against me. So I better not do it. But now they're going to have to think, if I don't support an agenda that works for working people, I'm going to have President Sanders come into my state and rally working class people. You know what? At the end of the day, the 1% is very powerful. No denying that. Mm-hmm. The 99%, when they're organized and prepared to stand up and fight, they are far more powerful.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Listen, I just want to, I guess I'm having a regular come to Bernie moment. I would say in church, come to Jesus moment. Because I did my best. I did my wholehearted best to stick with the person I was with in 2015, which was who was Elizabeth Warren. But I can't because when he talks this stuff right here, I mean, when you really consider, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I'm going to get back to the point, the point of Joe Manchin, right? But I just have to go off on the tangent. Honestly, the hope for humanity, because so much of this globe is wrapped up in American empire. So the way America goes really is a signal for how humanity is going to go so long as we have this current world order. The hope of humanity is that we actually break from the stranglehold of the 1% that is devastating this world. And Bernie Sanders has been consistently saying that forever. Now, back to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, along with a couple of other Democrats, are extremely problematic. And I don't mean problematic in the way that we kind of say that casually. You know what I mean? We always say problematic. No, Joe Manchin has supported Donald Trump on so many policies, on so many of his judicial picks. Joe Manchin is someone that we need to get up out of the paint. Bernie Sanders may very well be one of the few people as president who can challenge him head on his working class bona fides. Particularly, and I'm not throwing shade against Bernie Sanders, I'm just calling a spade, that white working class, you know what I mean? That everybody kind of erases the fact that they're black working class people all around. But Joe Manchin really represents a real white Southerner working class type of mentality. That's what he presents. And you're going to need somebody like Bernie Sanders who can speak to that element very directly, very in their language that they understand, and say, hey, your senator is a problem. And I fully expect and know that we need a president who's going to be willing to do that. Now, here's the difference. I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I just said. This is not that there is a difference between whipping, right? And I mean whipping in the congressional sense, whipping up votes and getting your party into shape. There's a difference between that and what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump abuses his bully pulpit. And I'm not even talking about to get policies that are bad for us accomplished. I mean, he just abuses his pulpit for his sheer ego, right? Purely for his ego. So that's not what I'm talking about when I say we need a president who's going to get in there and whip these guys into shape. I'm talking about a president who will get in there for specific policy solutions and proposals, who will do what he has to do and challenge people like Joe Manchin head on to get done what we need to get done. Yeah. So I absolutely love that he's taken it there already. I love that he's right there. I love that he's identifying one of the key problems that we will have with Joe Manchin. Now, here's the other thing about Joe Manchin. And I think we also need to consider he strikes me as a weasel. He strikes me as opportunistic and loves his proximity to power. And so he strikes me as he probably will go right along with Bernie Sanders simply because that's who is going to be president at the time. But if he doesn't, then we see that Bernie Sanders is ready to take him head on.
Today, I feel like quitting. I am heartbroken that I even have to share this with you. In 2016, I was blessed to win an award for Best Gospel Artist at the Dove Awards. Many of you may not know the Dove Awards in comparison are the Christian Grammys, like the Stella Awards or the Gospel Grammys. For so long, the terms Christian and gospel for many are code words for white and black. During that award speech, I felt the responsibility as a Christian and a man of color to address the civil unrest at that time that was plaguing our country with the killings of Philando Castile and Walter Scott, just to name a few, by white police officers. I called upon the audience to join me in remembering that as Christians, when we say nothing, we're saying something. Unfortunately, when that speech aired on the Christian network TBN, that part of my speech was edited out. I made my disappointment and frustration known to the Dove Awards committee and to the Trinity Broadcasting Network. I never heard from TBN, and the Dove Award committee promised to rectify the mistake so that it wouldn't happen again. In 2019, history repeated itself. I was humbled to win the same award, and during my speech, I brought attention to the murder of a Tatiana Jefferson in her home by a white police officer. Last week, during the airing of the awards on the same network again, that part of my speech was edited out.
That's the voice of Kirk Franklin, probably one of the most popular gospel artists. And if you want to know scale and scope, then a lot of you probably never even heard of him. That's because gospel, if you sell 1 million records in gospel, you're like doing amazing. But that was the voice. He has called. Well, actually, no, he's not calling for other people to boycott. He's decided that he's going to boycott the Dove Awards as he explained, the double words are like the Christian Grammys. And he's going to boycott TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network, as well as the Gospel Music Association. And I'm covering this for a lot of reasons. One, it was kind of serendipitous, rather, not apropos, but serendipitous that yesterday I was asking you all to reach out to Kirk Franklin on Twitter so that he can connect with Bernie Sanders and use his song Revolution for the rest of the duration of the Bernie Sanders campaign. And then this happened not too long after. That's just kind of an aside. But here's something that it's like all the roads are colliding, right? These are all of my intersections. This is what I got into politics for in the first place, because I saw the manipulation of religion being used as a tool of empowering the Republican Party. And something had to be done about it. My thing is this, and I'm probably one of Kirk Franklin's biggest fans, but the problem that he's talking about has existed forever. And this is not to throw any, shade to him or to, make light of what he's doing, because I'm glad he's doing it. It's about time that this is done. But here's my issue. The problem has been here all along, where white Christians will gladly enjoy your music, your gospel music, all of your shouting and praising God, and they will come to your church. They will let you preach. You could get all the spoils. I mean, you could get you a nice $30,000 check if you're a big time preacher preaching at some of these big white churches. They love you, so long as you don't open your mouth about the injustices going on around you. And so the thing is, biggest fan of Kirk Franklin, I am. And this is no shade towards him. But the thing is had he been speaking out about these things longer, he would have seen the problem a long time ago. Now, to shift away from Kirk, I would say this about the black church. I would say this about black preachers. One of the reasons I left the black church in the first place, one of the reasons I went on a nice long 10-year journey away from preaching myself and then completely away from church. I did 5 years away from church when I lived in Boston. I think we went to church 5 times in 5 years. That's a sabbatical in my world. One of the reasons was in 2008, while Jeremiah Wright was speaking truth to power, while he was calling out American empire, he was calling out white supremacy, he was calling out capitalism, he was using the liberation gospel to actually affect change, black church folks really didn't say nothing. Nothing. Some of the biggest names in black church, and I'm a fan of this guy to this day, T.D. Jakes. I didn't hear a word from him during that time, but I saw him on election night, 2008, smiling real big because we elected the first black president. See, the thing is that inside of the black church is a powder keg of revolutionary politics and a revolutionary spirit. It is. Always has been. But at the helm of many of these black churches are black leaders who either don't want to stir the pot, don't actually believe that there's a problem, and they can find themselves nicely in bed with Donald Trump, or they're afraid and intimidated by how vicious the fight really gets. Once you really put your neck out there to fight injustices and you use your faith as a justification to fight against white supremacy, to fight against capitalism, to fight against American imperialism, once you actually do that, you'll find out that some of these people who sing your songs, Kirk, they will hate you just as much as they claim they hate the devil. Now, I'm just a little. Well, no, I'm not going to be timid in what I say. I'm not hesitant in what I say, but I'm still a big enough fan of Kirk Franklin that I'd drop all of this that I'm doing here and I'll go on tour with him just to sing backup. You know what I mean? But I got to call a spade a spade. if you start speaking out against injustices for real, man, you will find out that some of these people, like I said yesterday, some of these people carry the same spirit of those white supremacists who lynched us on Saturday night and they showed up to church on Sunday morning. They're carrying they are carrying that same spirit, and that same spirit uses religion. And everyone in my audience, you can attest to this. You see how they use religion to oppress. They use religion to coddle us, to accumulate wealth, to accumulate power. And they do it in the name of Jesus. And here we are with the most radical interpretation of the same Bible that they read. We have an interpretation that's almost not even compatible with theirs. It's like, I'm going to be honest with you. It's like black folks, because we have had to look at God differently. Like, if you want to understand how it is that my faith and my religion is so radical and so revolutionary, is simply because I didn't have the luxury. Black folks, we really didn't have the luxury of sitting there and reading the Bible and just saying kumbaya, because they were blowing us up in our churches. You understand? You know what I mean? They were killing us right in our churches. And so we did not have the luxury historically to just look at the Bible and say kumbaya, because they were using it to keep us in slavery. And so as we began to read the Bible for ourselves, we saw that God was a God of justice and that he was disappointed. I think it's the book of Isaiah. He was disappointed because truth had fallen in the street, and no one would stand up for truth and no one would stand up for justice. And so he did it himself. With his strong arm, he saved. Okay, I'm revealing too much about how much I do actually really do know the Bible. But the point is this. Is that there is a fundamental difference between how we perceive God and how we utilize scripture and the construct of religion. Like, and again, sidestep, even if you don't believe in religion, even if you don't believe in God, you honestly have to see the impact that the construct of religion has on society. And what I'm saying is that there is a fundamental difference between the two constructs. The construct of the liberation gospel that black folks have had to appeal to because they were killing us in our churches. They were keeping us in slavery. They were lynching us and then going to Sunday school. And the way religion, the construct of evangelical white conservative Christianity in this country, and how that is used as a tool for power accumulation and wealth accumulation. And what happens, Brother Kirk, is that once you challenge that system, that construct in the slightest way, I mean, he was polite. He was gentle. Kirk was even like, we need to pray not only for the young lady who was just killed, but also for the police officer who killed her. Nah, bruh, I'm not there anymore. You know what God did with swine, right? He chased the pigs into the river, but I digress. But Kirk was being nice to these people. And what did they do? They edited it out because they could not tolerate, they could not stomach not a single reference, not even an ecumenical, not even a kumbaya reference to the plight of black people in this country. And so goes the plight of black people. So goes the plight of the working class. So goes the plight of people who are victims of American empire. And so it goes all the way full circle to the fact of what are you going to actually use your religion for on this earth? We have a new category. You have people who clearly throughout world history have used religion as a means of oppression, as a means of spreading their empire and their ambitions. We've seen that, and we've seen the damage that it has done. We've seen how it has set back humanity for 1,000 years. And then you have those of us who pick up that same book and be like, oh, hell no, you are not going to oppress the poor people. You're not going to oppress the marginalized people. Not when the Bible tells us this. You have those two distinct categories, but you have a third category that Kirk and so many people that I actually still love and support. You guys fall into this category. And it's those people who just really say nothing. If anything, you say the minimum. And the real question is if that group will ever actually speak out consistently and see the problem has been here all along. This is nothing new. Trinity Broadcasting Network is not a new problem. They're an old problem. I've always asked myself the question, if I actually had a career in gospel music, knowing what I know now, would I allow myself to go and get the checks, the big checks from the evangelical churches who are, by the way, contributing to gay conversion therapy? Would I go on TBN, who, by the way, would edit out any reference to justice? And the answer for me has always been absolutely, unequivocally, no. So anyway, I only bring it up because I think it's an interesting time where we are seeing through the lens of black artists, black gospel artists, and black opportunists like Kanye West. We're really exposing the real difference between how religion is used as a construct. Set aside, we don't even have to have the conversation about whether God is real or not. We see two definitively different constructs of how religion is used in society. And the real question is, who's on the Lord's side? Like, who's really going to get off the fence and honestly fight the good fight on behalf of marginalized people instead of just collecting a check? That might be too harsh. See you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.